So after I posted my Vegapunk video, I had a lot of people responding to a particular point with the same question. So I just wanted to make a video to explain the hypothetical, and I think it's important because regardless if the theory is true or not, the core concept is kind of important to understand for devil fruits. So the hypothetical is based around the concept in One Piece of how inanimate objects could consume devil fruits through currently unknown means and then gain the power of the devil fruit and also seemingly gain a distinct personality with the fruit. So the specific question was, if the Going Merry ate a devil fruit, would it sink? Would it still be a boat? What would happen? If you're new to my channel, I'll try to catch you up as best as I can, as fast as I can. But if you're already caught up to my theories, then skip to this time. But I also think that the way I explain it here will also be helpful to understand the very ending. So either way, continuing on, it's interesting because if you watch my cursed history video, you'd know that the devil fruits are not the only thing supposedly cursed. And then on top of that, the name curses seems to have perspective bias. Depending on the beholder, we are seeing a different perspective of what is a curse and what isn't a curse. To sum it up briefly, a curse for a fisherman would be something that takes away their ability to swim. Hence, a devil fruit is called a curse on Fishman Island. A curse for a swordsman would be a sword that takes the user's life. Hence, the Kitetsu swords that seemingly bring the swordsmen that use it to an early demise. And along with the swords being cursed, even the swords not labeled a curse but are equally famous seem to have personalities. So all of this bringing us to the point that objects can have personalities in One Piece, and poneglyphs are objects that contain multiple voices or can actually speak to people. But there was only one object from my memory that has had a physical manifestation of its spirit, and that was the Going Merry. So now going full circle, without even talking about chapter 1033, bringing up the Vegapunk video again, it might be that the way inanimate objects are able to eat devil fruits is because the objects contain these spirits and personalities, and the key is to find and use one that accepts the fruit or has a strong enough spirit to manifest its will. Real quick side note, make sure you check out my Merry Come Home music video I made for the 1000th episode. But going back, to understand what I mean by an object manifesting its will, you'd have to watch my cursed history video, the observation hockey video, or read chapter 1033. But essentially, wherever you've come from, you'd know by now that it was shown several times throughout the anime that certain objects can trigger observation hockey. Sandai Kitetsu was noted to trigger Zoro's presence sense when he first saw it in Log Town, and he commented on it more in Water 7. Then Luffy had his full observation hockey triggered on the Nidai Kitetsu, which is even more amazing since he is not a swordsman and doesn't even know the name of the sword, but found the predecessor to the Sandai Kitetsu. Swords are able to impose their will and determine who their masters are, and that is because their presence is so strong, again through currently unknown means, but I explained my perspective in the previous videos. That being said, this is not a new concept, as the Going Merry was able to do the exact same thing. Its presence was so strong that it fixed itself, then it asked Iceberg to repair it during the Aqua Laguna, and spoke to not just Luffy or Usopp, but the entire Straw Hat crew and all the shipwrights, and I just want to highlight this part. Originally when the Merry spoke to Usopp, that reminded me of how the poneglyphs communicated to Roger, whereas in Merry's final moments, the way it communicated and made everyone cry reminded me of when Roger's crew got to Laugh Tale, and apparently they heard a story so funny that it made all of them laugh. Very cool parallel in my opinion. That being said, because Merry has such a strong presence and we've seen its spirit manifest itself, and it was shown to be residing on the Thousand Sunny in the episode of Merry, I said in my Vegapunk video that Merry is possibly an object that could wield a devil fruit, and maybe even the Thousand Sunny if it develops its own spirit, or based on what Iceberg and Frankie say, that the Thousand Sunny was built to reincarnate the Going Merry. So again, it might be possible that the boat can eat a devil fruit. Which one? I'm not sure yet. But to address what a lot of people thought, if a boat eats a devil fruit, won't it sink? Won't it not be a boat? Won't it be pointless? Again, clarifying, I'm not saying the boat will eat a devil fruit, but if it did, it would theoretically, based on what we know, still be able to function completely normal. So one of the most important resources for how devil fruit users interact with water is the SBS from chapter 398. The person asks Oda, how does Crocodile bathe if he is weak to water? And that prompted Oda to clarify the devil fruit's weakness. To quote some of the things said, Oda says, when one eats a devil fruit, the sea rejects that person and their bodies become unable to swim. So swimming requires movement. So that's That's why devil fruits are usually said to remove your ability to swim. Boats don't need to move to traverse the ocean. The sea refers to rivers, pools, baths, the ocean, anything that holds a pool of water or standing bodies of water. So that's why rain and showers don't weaken devil fruit users in general. So Oda then goes to say, if a devil fruit user's entire body is submerged into the sea, then they will struggle to use their powers, and the struggle won't amount to anything. And then just expanding on that, being fully submerged submits the user to the full weakening effects, meaning the lack of mobility. We see this with Jack, where he is alive and breathing underwater, but just can't move despite being a fishman. A human devil fruit user at that point would have already had their lungs filled with water and died. After this, Oda says if it's just half their bodies, the effect is lessened. So the degree of submersion relates back to the weakening effect of the water. Also, we see that sea stone also has this property where based off the density of the sea stone, it can alter how weak the wearer becomes. Also noting that Haki can counter sea prism stone effects, as on chapter 935, the warden of Udon comes in and says the sea prism is working, his willpower is simply off the charts. I also have more proof that Haki counters the ocean's effect on devil fruit users, but in controlled situations. But just going back to the boat question, the other significant part of this answer is that the ocean's effect on a devil fruit user does not revert or change how their body naturally is. What I'm referring to here is Luffy being a rubber man. If you remember in Arlong Park, while Luffy was underwater, they were able to stretch his body and bring his head above water so that he could breathe again. The devil fruit permanently changed Luffy's body, and that doesn't get reverted by the water. So a boat's natural state of being a floating object does not change when it's touching the water. A boat usually is never fully submerged when it's on the water, so it wouldn't be fully weakened. The basic rule is that an object will sink if it weighs more than exactly the same volume of water. There's no indication that a devil fruit automatically increases your mass or something that makes you sink. If you're put into water and are too weak to breathe or move, you will drown or sink, especially in the ocean. Like, I don't know how many of you know this, but even if you are a good swimmer, swimming or floating in a pool is nothing compared to swimming out in the ocean currents. But again, none of this applies to a boat, because on top of all that, a boat does not swim or move to be able to float or go through the ocean. It uses sails or motors. In summary, no, a boat that consumes a devil fruit should not sink or stop being a boat just because it ate a fruit. It would still function 100% normal. Also, when you think of the wording that Oda uses, the sea rejects the devil fruits. Boats kind of reject the sea given that they are meant to avoid being submerged into the sea. In a way, when you think of it, boats are kind of counters to the ocean, which sounds kind of dumb, but like, that is how devil fruit users overcome the ocean. Devil fruits make them sink, but boats keep them afloat, which is also interesting because usually the only way you'd see a boat at the bottom of the ocean is because it broke. But we have seen a fully functioning boat sitting at the bottom of the sea, but I'll save that for a different video. So now getting to probably the most interesting part of this question, after answering the part about whether or not the boat would float still, is okay, well, if it eats a devil fruit, wouldn't it not be able to use its power since it's touching the water at all times? To quickly answer that, the Thousand Sunny is a pretty unique boat that can actually fly, so it could use its Kude burst and fly and then transform, but besides that, I think it could still technically use a devil fruit power in the water, but this is definitely more of a stretch, like literally a stretch. So one of the best examples of devil fruit powers still working in the water again is Luffy on Fishman Island. Luffy is only partially touching the water in this scene, as he is apparently extremely effectively protected by the bubble, and he is able to use his fruit in multiple ways while just his arm is touching the water. He expands his arm to gear 3 and then uses the fact that if he just transfers that to his arm, then he won't need to do anything directly in the water. I'm assuming here he was able to get his arm out there initially using just pure momentum from his strength. But the idea is that if Luffy touches the water, he weakens, so his punches would be weaker. But in the scene where Luffy uses Red Hawk, he coats his arm in Haki. And I think the use of Haki here also allows him to negate the weakening effect of the water he is touching here. Unfortunately, there aren't too many underwater scenes to show how devil fruit powers work underwater, especially not enough to compare to our boat situation, but there was this one pre-timeskip example of in the water activation of a devil fruit that was really interesting to me. The example was in Aokiji first used Ice Age. This is the closest example I can think of someone using their devil fruit power in a serious scene while touching the water. Originally, I thought that if you touch the water no matter how little, you wouldn't wouldn't be able to activate the devil fruit power. If you remember, Aokiji stuck his hand into the water and was still able to use his devil fruit power. I think in this scene, Aokiji might have done this by coating his hand in haki. We wouldn't have seen it because this is pre-time skip, and I think him doing this is what allowed him to utilize his fruit to the max potential of being able to freeze the entire ocean. So now bringing this back to the main point of whether or not a boat would be able to do this. If its will was so strong that it has a presence and a spirit, maybe it could exert its will also. The Going Merry's willpower is pretty strong in my opinion. It was able to sail through the Aqua Laguna from Water 7 to Enies Lobby with no navigator or captain and traverse the ocean currents all because it wanted to get to the Straw Hats. That was all willpower. That being said, if the Thousand Sunny were to get a devil fruit, it'd probably be a Zoan fruit. I'd imagine it would be the Zoan lion fruit, as that one is kind of the most obvious choice for it, and then I'm kind of imagining it does the Kure burst and transforms into lion mid-air. Obviously, going back to what I said at the beginning, whether or not I think this will happen is not why I was talking about it. I was just bringing it up to point out that it should be possible for a boat to have a devil fruit and connecting it to the spirit aspect of objects that we're learning more and more about with each of my videos and honestly with every new chapter. Hopefully you guys found this video interesting. This was simply my answer to a question and not even a full-blown theory. Stay until the end to hear something that all of this does tie back to for a future video. But overall, I hope it left you guys with new thoughts and ideas because that's honestly the most fun aspect of One Piece, being free with your thoughts and ideas. If you guys want to support me beyond watching my videos on YouTube, check out my merch and subscribe to my Patreon. I really appreciate it all. So just a quick addition to this video, I lied when I said the Going Merry was the only object that was able to manifest its spirit. Well, not really a lie, but I wasn't being genuine. There is one more object. Okay, it's not an object, but technically it is. It's Brook. Brook's body is technically an object that is now a vessel for his spirit. Like for people who are alive, their bodily functions are what keep their spirit alive. You shut down any physiological necessity and usually the spirit would wither away. But Brook is the opposite to this. His body is already withered away and he is able to somehow have bodily functions like sight, taste, bowel movements, even though he has no actual body. It's all being powered by his spirit. So if you remember my hockey strengthening video, one of my original videos, this is how it all connects back. Brook is an example of a body being powered by spirit energy, so there are some examples, primarily fasting, where humans are able to substitute what it seems like spirit energy for food energy and forego eating for prolonged periods of time. This seems like a natural manifestation of what Brook is able to do because of his devil fruit. I think Brook's fruit is a huge clue in the power system for so many concepts, from poneglyphs to objects with spirits, to Zoro's spirit world soul cutting abilities, to observation haki, to conqueror's haki. Like, I can connect a bunch of things back to Brook, which is why after my Sanji video, it'll make sense to then go to Brook. Also, there may be examples of natural manifestations of Brook's powers, but just throwing it out there, what other objects can get willpower? Like, could an island gain willpower and a spirit? I wonder what that would look like, and if maybe we've seen something like that. There was one line that Whitebeard said, and it really gave me goosebumps when I read it in the context of this theory. I'll share that in a future video. It's going to be a lot of fun making all of these connections to Brook, so as always, thank you guys for connecting to me, and looking forward to sharing the next Par Vision.